So I think it's reasonable to put false here as long as we provide a mechanism to add something to the solution so that when we're generating or loading a puzzle, that's how we would do it. So I'm going to make this a vec of x. And then type inference is smart enough to figure out that this is a collecting to a vector. Oh, except I typoed. Don't need this, don't need this or this. So now we can index into squares. It'll be the x position, then the y position. So we need to add this function on the square. Should be a pretty simple one. I don't need this. I do like having the outline here, just to know what's in my file. So we have an add to solution for when we're actually generating the puzzle. But when we're not generating the puzzle and we're using the puzzle creator, this will not be used. So this is going to remain unused for a while until I get around to implementing the actual game. So the puzzle grid should have a show function as well. We need a canvas, and I think that's it. Oh, and we also need to handle events, but I'll deal with that in a moment. Show. So what show will do is it'll draw a giant square. You know what? In the puzzle grid square, I had it clearing a white square, but let's not do that. Let's just do nothing. In the empty case, and in the marked case, we draw an X. So that way the grid will draw one large white rectangle, and then the squares will just overlay on top of that. Okay, so we fill in the background. So we have fill rect, we have a draw rect, then we're going to draw the individual grid lines. Well, first of all, let's make sure this works. So I'm not going to do much else yet. Well, I suppose one thing I could do is, no, let's not. We'll just draw this for now. So then the puzzle creator so we need new to take in the window that we're currently on, because the back button will change it. And also winning or losing the game would change it, but that's not for the puzzle creator. The save button will not change the current window. It will open a file, save the puzzle, and then close the file. So here what we do, we construct a new button. It's going to be at 50-50. It's going to be 100 by 100. It's going to be red. It's going to say back. And when you click it, it's going to say window dot lock equals window menu, or the main window. This has to be a string. Save button is a more complicated button. It's going to be at, let's say 175, 50. It's going to be 100 by 100 again. It's going to be blue. It's going to be a lighter blue. It's going to say save. And when you click it, it's going to do a lot of things. So let's just leave it as a to-do for now. Also, this is going to be an error, so I have to do this as a move closure. If we had multiple that were changing the window, we would have to like clone it so that both could move it. But luckily we don't have to do that. So the puzzle grid is going to start out being like in the center of the screen, filling up the screen. So maybe what we need to do is pass in the canvas width and height here. And then we have another function here. So that's x, y, width, and height. Hey, thanks for the follow, F. Yellen. How's it going, dude? I hope you like my default zombie GIF. Haven't bothered to change that yet. So anyway, we want the grid to be with an aspect ratio that is determined by its number of columns and rows. So we need to include the columns and rows here. Because then we can say let grid aspect ratio is the rows divided by the columns, let's say. Then we have the aspect ratio of the space that's available. So let's say let available space equals, and this is going to change depending on the UI elements that we add into the game. Because if you look in the actual game here, I'm gonna have to actually hack it so that you can see the actual game, because currently it has a concurrent modification exception whenever trying to change the elements and like pop and push from a list. Yeah, it's kind of obnoxious. I don't remember why it happens exactly, but it does mean that I have to change the behavior of the start button to just maybe instantly start a game. So let's see where I did that in the Java code. So it says push window, window.game mode. We're just going to say window.game. Is that the right enum variant? Yeah, it is. So now what it'll do, hopefully, is just straight up get me into the game. And you can see that that didn't work at all. So there's some other function that I need to be calling here. Let's see what that button might be. It's going to say like start or something. Down arrow, up arrow, down arrow. Okay, it says let's do this. So the click listener is this : init puzzle. So where is the start button again? So let's do init puzzle. What's wrong? Oh, I'm doing this in the call to push window. That's not right. And not that. All right, let's run it and see what happens. It crashes with another concurrent modification exception. So you can see that my Java code is not the best. So why does that happen? So we create a new grid element here. But the problem is we add this to a list while, okay, so the basic loop of the game here is we have a struct called elements that has all the elements and goes through all the elements on each frame and basically handles the events for them. So every frame, it's checking if my mouse is over this button, or if I'm clicking on the button, or if I move my mouse off the button while I'm clicking, anything like that. That's what the elements class here is handling. Where is that? It's here. So we say you can add an element to the entire elements list, and this is actually a hook on the constructor for elements, so you can't avoid adding this to the list. So whenever we construct, so this is actually not what I thought. Whenever you construct a new grid element here, this adds it to the list unavoidably. And since we're handling events, we've handled the click event and me letting go of the mouse button on the start game button. And so we've added to the list while the list is being iterated through in order to do updates. So that's the bug. As for how to fix that, it's probably too much of a time investment for me to bother right now. So let's continue rewriting it. So we're going to say that, so let's see. We're going to have the UI element of the buttons at the top. We're going to have a UI element that shows the user how many mistakes they've made and how many they have left until they lose. And then we're going to have a timer in the bottom right. So there's basically like a top bar where the puzzle can't be, and there's a bottom bar where the puzzle can't be. So we just need to know the width of those bars. So let's say we have the entire x-axis to work with, and then we're going to subtract some constants here, which is probably not great coding practice, but it's probably fine. So we have 150 on the top, and we have something on the bottom. How big is that going to be? I'm going to estimate that it's 30 pixels tall right now. So then we say space ratio equals that. And now we need to compare the aspect ratios in order to figure out, are we constrained in the x-axis? Like, is the grid wider than it is tall and in a space that is taller than it is wide? Or the opposite? Oh, I've imported something random here. Whoopsies. So if the space ratio is greater than the grid aspect ratio, that means that the y over the x is larger than the other y over x. Which means that we are constrained in the x-axis. So the x-axis is going to determine the scale. So we're going to set the grid's width to be exactly the width that is available. You know what? We're going to convert the available space. We're going to subtract 200 from this, just so that we have some space for clues in the future. And then here, I'm also going to subtract an extra 100. So we will say let grid x or grid width, comma grid height equals, and then we're going to do this if statement. And then this is going to be available space dot 0, and the height is going to be determined by converting this to F64, multiplying it by the grid aspect ratio, and then converting it back to a U32. Otherwise, it's going to be, we do the opposite thing, right? So we say the y-axis converted to float divided by the grid aspect ratio, because grid aspect ratio is represented as y over x. So if we divide by that, we're multiplying by x over y. The y's cancel out. And now we have that. We have the grid's width and height. So that's nice. We might need some additional information here. We're going to keep track of the offsets as well. So the x offset here is 0, and the y offset is going to be, we might need to introduce a variable here. That. Then we say let extra space be the available space in the y minus the grid height. Extra space over 2. So we're going to do the same thing here. Extra space equals, this time it's going to be available space in the x minus the grid width. So the x is going to be extra space and the y is going to be 0. Okay, and then I believe what we need to do is just return these values. So we don't really, yeah, let's introduce a constant here for this value, or at least something close to that value. Let x offset equals 200, or 100 actually, because it's going to be 100 on either side. So this is going to be x offset times 2. Y offset equals 150 plus 100. Is that right? No, we're saying the bottom bar is 30. We're saying the 100 here is extra spacing or something. I can't remember exactly. These are the buttons. They have to be accounted for. So I think I'm going to add 50. And then we'll subtract y offset minus 50, because that's the extra space that we're giving it on the bottom. So we're going to say x offset plus grid x offset, y offset plus y offset, grid width, grid height. And that's our final return value. So I think this is making some sense now. Now, whenever we're constructing a puzzle creator, we need to know how large the puzzle is going to be. So I'm going to have to add an extra menu in between someone clicking on the puzzle creator button and actually entering the puzzle creator mode. But that's something we'll deal with in a minute. So we're going to say position the puzzle grid with the canvas size, the calls, and the rows. Is that right? Oh, we actually want a U32 here. That's all right. Why is that a U32? Because, wait, no reason. Because that still compiles. Okay, and then we construct the grid. This is a puzzle grid. There we go, that's our puzzle grid. So let's just for the moment, oh, we need a update and show method. That's important. And by update, I mean handle events. So the back button handles the event. We have to clone it. The save button handles the event. And the grid handles the event. However, we haven't written that function. I'm just going to say that it does nothing for now. So we have that. We need a show function. Do we need a font? We will in the future. And we'll also need a texture creator in the future. And the only thing that fails usually is the SDL library. There's that. Oh, we actually need it now because the buttons need a font and a texture creator in order to draw their own text. Yes, Silent Z. The nested ifs are kind of disgusting. It's 5 of them right there. And this one's not even necessary because there's no else branch. You could easily say like if result is not null and not result. I'm very glad to be rewriting this because there's so much like that in the code. I wrote this when I was 15 or something. And I implemented game over as an exception. So that's interesting. All right, so we have that showing and handling events. So let's say that we create a puzzle creator whenever you click on the puzzle creator button. So first of all, we construct one. Wait, do we? No, I think, how do we want to do this? Because when you construct the puzzle creator, you need to know how big the puzzle is going to be. So we don't want to construct it immediately, like we do with the menus. So I think the handle and show functions need to start to be part of a trait so that we can use dynamic dispatch here. So we'll add the puzzle creator instance to a collection of some kind, which will probably be a vec of arcs of dyne showable or something. Implementing rendering suspension by throwing a JavaScript promise. Oh god. Yeah, I was definitely using language features for the heck of it, or for the purpose of it. And that sounds like a lot like the React thing you're talking about there. It's like, we have these cool async functions and promises now. Might as well use them. Alright, so if we're going to use dynamic dispatch, we need a showable trait. And currently handle can't throw an error, but that might change in the future. Not really sure. Of course, a downside of this is going to be that everything requires a font and a texture creator. Oh yeah, writing this project was an absolute blast. But now that, like, I try to extend it and add features, like you saw whenever, well, I don't know if you were here, but I tried to make the start button jump straight into the game. Now, whenever I click it, I get a concurrent modification exception because I am modifying a list of events or elements while the elements are being iterated through, which is a classic, like, you know, the internal vector could have been reallocated on that exact insert. And so you would be using an invalid iterator. But I didn't think about that kind of stuff at the time. So if we have a showable trait, now I want Puzzle Creator to implement it. What's it called? Puzzle Creator. So I can delete these, move them in here, get rid of the visibility modifier. Oh, I forgot the result on the end of this. Alright, that implements the trait. And frankly, this is the only class that needs to actually implement that trait because it's the only one that will be added to a collection of things to be handling and showing. I'm still trying to decide on the best way to go about this. So first of all, let's run it, just so you can see what the re-implementation looks like a little bit. We've got the buttons back. These are hand implemented. Play game currently sends you to the game mode selection screen, which is not implemented yet, so you have to close the application after that point. The leaderboard actually functions and takes me to the website that is 404. Actually, its IP cannot be found because this is my friend's website, and he has taken it down since then. The puzzle creator button does nothing because I have not hooked into it yet, but it will enter the puzzle creator mode just for us to test it. The controls menu actually has a back button, so we have that state working properly. And then we have the quit game button, which obviously functions as intended. So whenever someone hits the creator button, we are on the window : creator. So maybe what we do is we have a vec of pairs, where the first element of the pair is a window enum variant, and it tells us which window that thing is visible on. And then the second element is the thing to show or to handle events. So let's do that. This might be easier implemented with a hash map. But with the hash map, you have to check for none or initialize them all at the beginning of the program. And I don't really feel like doing that right now. So we're going to say let mutable, because we're going to insert the puzzle creator itself whenever we click the button. And that means this also has to be locked behind a synchronization primitive, just because of how the button event handling is implemented in this code. We're using callbacks. And what do we call it? I'm going to call it special widgets. So it is a vec of arcs, of mutexes, of pairs, of window, paired with box of dyn showable. Wow, that is quite the type. I kind of don't like it just because of that. The trait showable cannot be moved into an object, made into an object, because it's got a generic function on it. So this is a problem. But I can say that it's known that the texture creator is of a window context, and that should solve that. And then I have to change it here. No more generics. Of course, in doing this, we are restricting what kinds of texture creators we accept, but for the game, it doesn't matter. It still says it can't be made into an object. It needs to allow building a vtable to allow the call to be resolvable dynamically. Consider moving show to another trait. Show is still a problem. Ah, this is another generic, hiding in disguise. Why are they in mutexes? Because the update function requires mute self. That's a disguised generic, so we don't need that. Window is not a render target. I'll use the type alias then, because I don't know the exact type. Oh, that was the wrong type of window. I am not using threads currently. This is required in Safe Rust for the language to trust me that I am not abusing the callbacks because the callbacks change the state of the program and are called whenever the update function is called. And so Rust was giving me many errors regarding the fact that I was handling program state inside of closures. So what I've done as a result is I've represented the program state with a simple enum, and I've put said enum behind an arc of a mutex, and I give the arc to any button that exists, and so they all have a shared sort of mutable reference to the program state and are allowed to change it at will. So while I'm not currently using threads, if I were to change the event handling logic to be multi-threaded, then it could be. Alright, it looks like we're compiling again. So this type is acceptable. So whenever we click the creator button, I wonder if we don't put the arc mutex inside the vec, but we make the vec inside the arc of mutex. Because then we could share the vec. Something like that. I'm still not sure I love this. But now we can go down here. It's called current window in this context. The canvas size is the size variable. Number of columns, I'm just going to say 10 for now, and 10. These are going to not be constants later whenever we implement the size selection, which I can't show you because of the concurrent modification exception that's happening currently. But we add the puzzle creator. Now hang on. I'm doing this wrong. I'm doing this very wrong. What I need to happen is in the main menu, in this function. No, in the new function. We have a closure up here, which says creator button click. The current window is window.creator. So here what we can do is we pass in the gigantic vector thing, which I might put under type alias because I'm going to forget it every single time. Special widgets. So it's an arc, mutex, vec, window, box, showable. And then here, we give it the current window, we give it the canvas size, we give it 10 by 10. Then we say special widgets dot lock dot append push puzzle window creator box new of puzzle creator. And that seems to have broken stuff here, which is reasonable. So we do it here. This is not mutable because the vector is behind a mutex. Yes, I'm using callbacks for buttons. That's the main reason that all of this is so complicated. I don't know a super, like, extremely better way to handle button events. Or at least I can't think of one. So let's see what happens. Oh wait, we need to go to this here whenever we're handling events. We gotta clone the event here. And then we say for widget in special widgets dot iter dot lock dot iter if widget dot window or dot 0 equals current window dot lock widget dot one dot handle event. We dereference that. Cannot borrow widget dot one as mutable because we need to iter mute here. Moved, so clone it. So there we go. That's now only handling events for widgets that are currently visible on the current window. I'm just going to copy paste this for the drawing code. It's going to be pretty similar, except we are not iterating mutably this time. And we say show, pass the canvas, pass the font, and pass the texture creator. And that can fail. And we're going to get a deadlock now because I did something wrong. Oh, just kidding. It's going to work first try. So here you can see the puzzle grid. What I'm not seeing is the black rectangle, but I might have forgotten to set the color to black. We have a save button, which crashes because of to do. It says not yet implemented. And we have a back button, which takes us back to the main menu, just like that. So that's cool. Oh, I can click the button too fast. That's interesting. Also, the grid is not centered. Why might that be? Am I not dividing by 2 somewhere? Oh, yeah, here. There we go. Now it's perfectly centered in the window. However, if we resize the window, it is no longer perfectly centered. So now what we have to do is handle events for this thing, and we just kind of call position puzzle grid again with the canvas size and the selfs, columns, and rows. So here we say if let event window, win event is going to be window event, import that, size change, xy equals event. We got to clone this. Then what we do is we say let xywh equals self position puzzle grid xy self dot calls, which we will do in a second, self dot rows. Can I make a handle button method for each window and call it with those button click events? Immutable game state. So those callbacks only grab the part of the mutable game state that they actually need. They get it as an argument, and well, they capture it inside the closure. Yeah, so the first thing. To give them it as an argument means that I would pass the game state into the update function for every single thing that I update. So to make it a little bit easier on myself, what I've done is captured it in a lambda. But I could do that, absolutely. It might prevent me from needing mutexes. So that's definitely valid. Let's make these fields public, at least to the parent. So let me finish this for now, and then we'll look into that. So we're saving calls and rows. Oh wait, this is in completely the wrong place. Is it easier? I don't know that it's easier. What's this error? XY. These are I32s and we're expecting U32s. Okay, now that we're out of errors. So, here's what we currently do. We have current window here, which is an arc of a mutex of a window, which is a simple C-like enum. We also have quit requested, which will exit the program if it's ever set to true. It's an arc of a mutex of a bool. So whenever we construct a menu, we pass in these mutable game state here. We clone them because they're inside arcs, and that allows them to be captured inside the closure by move. And then we call special widgets, where we give it special widgets as well, because the main menu captures that in order to create the puzzle creator widget. So the idea here is that we are able to add more things just by creating some struct, like the main menu struct or the controls menu struct. And whenever you construct it, just clone the arcs and pass them in if it needs that access to that game state. And then everything else is handled in main. However, if we were to not do that, we would not need to do this at all. The constructors become much simpler, and they only take the things that they need at that instant. These are things that they will need in the future, whenever the button is clicked. Then in the main loop, we say handle event, right? This is when the button determines if it's clicked or not. However, then we would have to pass in all of the mutable game state here, even to things that don't really need it. So the good news about that is we can just use a mutable borrow. The bad news is that the handle signature becomes more complicated. So it's a trade-off, right? We are trading off the constructor being more complicated for the update or handle function being more complicated. Oh, well, here's the actual handling that involves the mutable game state. And the benefit of this is that we have a clean interface here on the trait. So this is on the trait, right? All it needs is the event, and anything else is implicitly captured from the lambdas. So if we were to make the puzzle grid capable of mutating the current window, which it currently doesn't need to, and there's no reason for it to do that, to be honest. But if we needed access to that, we could add that in the constructor here, and its interface, as far as showable is concerned, would not change at all. So I think the callbacks are nice for interface once the object is constructed. So the interface is cleaner. However, more stuff is implicit. So there are arguments both ways there. So I think I'm going to stick with the callbacks model for now. Let's see if we can't get the puzzle grid drawing correctly. Oh, so I forgot to set the draw color. So now if we run this and we go to the puzzle creator, we have a nice non-grid. So we need to go through now. It does make me wrap everything in mutexes, and that's another argument against it, right? But the only things that I'm wrapping in mutexes are the mutable game state. For example, the grid's state is actually not going to be wrapped in a mutex. It's just the global game state, which is involving what window we're currently on, whether or not to quit the game on the next frame, and what elements are currently visible. So here we have the puzzle creator element, and I think if we keep going back and forth with the puzzle creator, it's constructing a new one each time. And interestingly, the button clicking isn't consistently working. That is very strange. What is happening here? So this would be in the main menu, right? So we lock the current window, mutex. We set it to the creator window, unconditionally. We also construct a new puzzle creator and push it back to the vector. So if I debug here, the special widget's length, it should be increasing constantly. So now it's 1, now it's 2, 3, 4. So how do we do this? What I want it to do is only construct a new puzzle creator. Well, what I actually want it to do is get rid of the puzzle creator whenever I exit. So the back button inside of the puzzle creator struct should be able to change that. So we'll do an intermute remove if or something like that. So we're going to pass in the game state here. So the back button, we're going to say window.lock equals window main. And additionally, lock the special widgets. I don't want to remove one item. Iter filter. W is not equal to window creator. No. That won't work because it creates a vector of references, and I want to just remove if. Is it retain if? Let's try it. All right. So now in the main menu, what's this? It takes 5 arguments. It takes special widgets, which luckily we're passing in here. So where are special widgets used? So we're going to clone special widgets here. And now we're only on warnings and possibly deadlocking. That looks like a deadlock to me. Oh yeah, that's a hard crash. Every function has the if suffix in C++. Yeah, it's all a little bit more verbose when it comes to sequence manipulation in C++. Okay, so the deadlock happens because special widgets is locked here. We go into the inner stuff. We say widget.1.handle. And here widget.1 is the puzzle creator itself. And then we try to lock it again because we're handling the event. The back button is handling its event. So this is the line where it deadlocks. So if I put a breakpoint here, it'll reach it. Oh, well, I don't exactly want that. So where are we now? Yeah, so we're inside the closure here. So we're on this exact line. The overloading of the pipe operator. Oh, like you're talking about ranges? Yeah. I think personally the overloading of the bit shift operators is more egregious. It's so bad, man. C++ is a weird language. So the event is, whoa, I thought I would be able to read that, but I guess not. Hmm. I'm talking about cout and cin. I almost need like a cleanup flag instead. And then whenever we're in the main loop and we see the cleanup flag has been set by something after event handling, then we go through and delete all the special widgets for which the current window doesn't match. In other words, we use retain. I don't love this either. However, it will work. And that's the priority that I have right now. Okay. Then we go to the main menu constructor. We add in And then here we don't need special widgets, we just need the cleanup flag. I might have to do some gross stuff here. Unfortunately, oh Jesus, please no. Shift left assign. No, 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 I don't even want to think about that. But a problem that I have currently with Rust and its locking semantics is that this lock is retained for the entire if block. So what I have to do instead is say if star g, then we say star g equals false. And now this won't be called every frame. Oops, that's the wrong thing. Disclosure implements function once, not function. Oh, it's asking me to clone it. Cannot borrow G is mutable. Okay. You are mutable now. And look at that. Things are working again. Also, I added some fancy logic to make the buttons like fit within the space that they have. So that's neat. So now the puzzle creator is doing what we want, and we have a framework here for special widgets that are constructed late to exist. And that's good because we're going to have this in the main game as well. For the puzzle creator, it's a little bit different. Boolean and mutex. What's wrong with that? I've got two of those. Oh, you're saying atomic bool, aren't you? You're right. Are atomic bools copy? They must be, right? Do I just dereference it? No. Yeah, me neither. I'm not really sure how to work with this. I need like a example. Get mute. And then I dereference. Hey, that looks like it works. Yeah? Okay. Unused import, of course. I probably don't need that type alias anymore. I don't want to get mute, I just want to get it. It's load. And I have to give it an ordering. This is complex. Let's say relaxed. That's what it says in the example. And this is a bool. Now have I reintroduced the deadlock? Possibly. And this is implementing function once again. You know, it moves it. I want to copy it. Can I clone? No. How can it deadlock if I'm not using threads? Because I'm trying to lock twice in a row. Like, I acquire a lock, then I acquire the lock again. It's not really a deadlock and more just like a double lock. You saw the back button not working earlier, and that was why. So, what do we do about this thing? What's the other error? There's another one. Oh, down here. It implements function mute. Yeah, I think the arc of mutex of bool is actually working better here. Because atomic bool is cool and all. But it seems to have stricter requirements and changed the meaning of my functions. And I can't clone it. That's the most important thing. Maybe an arc of atomic bool. Maybe that's a good middle ground. Because this function has to be callable multiple times. That is the important thing. Still implementing function mute, huh? All right, we'll relax the requirements on the function in the button class. Hmm. Okay. So in the button class, we're going to say instead of function, this is function mute. Because we don't really care if it mutates. I don't think it's a big deal. Oh, you're kidding. Oh, I forgot to change the new function, of course. Now that error is gone. And here we need an arc. Don't need to clone quit requested. What's wrong here? It's an arc of atomic bool. Actually just expected an atomic bool. That's fine, that's the only place quit requested is actually used. And now we've got some other errors. Atomic bool is not copy. Wow. Alright, this has got to be an arc too. We have to clone it here. Have to change the function signature. Cannot borrow data and an arc is mutable. Okay. So this is really toying with me now. Because in order for it to be mutable, I would have to put it behind a mutex. And so I've effectively converted this into an arc of a mutex of an atomic bool, which is the same as an arc of a mutex of a bool, as far as I'm concerned. So I think it's rollback time. This is lock. This was a good exercise though, because now I understand that why it has to be specifically an arc of mutex of bool. Oh, is there store? Okay, thank you for stopping me. Ordering, we're going to acquire and then release the lock. And then not dereference that. You got an error in puzzle creator for the same reason. And then in main, or wait, what's in button? Cannot borrow data and an arc is mutable. This cannot be a function mute. That's okay, right? Yeah, that seems okay. Because I'm not doing get mute anymore. I forgot how atomics work. So I was like, there's no other way to do this. But there was. Am I writing Python or something? Jeez. Quit GameWorks? Panicked. There's no such thing as an acquire release store. Okay. We have to change that. Try relaxed. I guess. Okay, that works. I don't know what the difference between the orderings is to be exact, but I believe it only matters in, well, when we're doing multi-threaded code, and we're not. So, for the most part, this is working. Where was the other one where I did acrel? Here. One puzzle creator. Save button is to do. Alright, that seems good. I'm gonna have to stop the stream actually, a bit early. I've got some stuff to be doing today, gotta drive around, pick up stuff. So I will start stream again tomorrow evening, and I'll be doing more of this probably. Yeah, definitely. Alright, so thank you guys for stopping by. Let me find someone to raid. You were going to sleep anyway? What time is it where you live? Oh, geez. Well, good night. And I'm gonna raid Striger now. So, see you there.